Is India's largest airline cancelling hundreds of flights? And more importantly, does IndiGo's dominance now risk a national aviation crisis? Well, over 2,000 flights have been cancelled by IndiGo over the last 7 days, with more cancellations taking place even as we speak. Since morning, we know that about 400 of IndiGo flights have already faced cancellations as of today too. Now, in case these are the questions that you have been looking forward to answers of, then this is the video that you must be watching out for. This is where we explain to you the entire IndiGo chaos, the crisis that we are faced with, and what should be done to avoid such unprecedented crisis ever from happening again that leads to a lot of chaos at the aviation spaces, the queues, and always we see the passengers who are at the receiving end, and of course thousands of luggage that has been, those visuals that are coming on your screens, people just waiting for some solution, and those that have been left unattended for all these 7 days. IndiGo, remember, has blamed unforeseen operational challenges for these cancellations. Experts have pointed out the clear reason behind the crisis that IndiGo is faced with is behind the crew and flight duty time limitation rules that have come into force completely by November. This process was already on since last year in a phased manner, and by November we saw full implementation of these new rules. Early last year, the government had announced these new flight regulations called the Flight Duty Time Limitations, or FDTL. This rule was to improve the working hours of Indian airline pilots. However, when November 1st deadline arrived, IndiGo Airline was not prepared. Under these new FDTL rules, the weekly rest period of the pilots has been increased to 48 hours from 36 hours earlier. The night landings have been limited to just 2 from 6 earlier. And this has truly impacted IndiGo's crew rostering significantly. These norms have also extended the definition of night hours by an hour, imposing an additional constraint on the airline's operations as well. These new rules, however, were aimed at better combating pilot fatigue, which is a key risk in aviation safety, but has in fact created a chaos right now. These rules have resulted a crew shortage for IndiGo. If you ask this one question, that if the rules is for the entire aviation industry, why is only IndiGo affected? Well, the clear reason behind this is that IndiGo relies on a lean staff, as its business model functions like that, and also brings up IndiGo's own failure in staffing strategy. Pilot strength in IndiGo has actually struggled to match its pace with the fleet expansion. Remember, in financial year 2021, we had seen IndiGo having a fleet size of 285 with the pilot's strength of 3,734, which was a ratio of 13%. By FY25, the fleet size has jumped to 434 with pilot size of 5,456, a ratio of 12.6%. That means the ratio of pilots to the number of flights or the fleet size has actually reduced over the last couple of years. Now, even when you compare this with the next biggest airline, that's Air India operates less than half the number of flights that IndiGo currently has. So IndiGo has a huge fleet size, but the pilot problem has emerged at the core of it. Civil Aviation Minister Mr. Kinnarappu Mohan Naidu has actually blamed IndiGo for this mismanagement regarding their crew. He's also added that other airlines were prepared for the changes, but IndiGo was not. Also, experts have pointed out how Indian carriers are at present operating at lower than optimal aircraft utilization levels. And due to reasons like delayed new aircraft deliveries and also planes, they have grounded as well. This also has given them more flexibility for crew rostering, as more pilots are now available to the fleet size that the other airlines operate as well. Airline has, however, IndiGo has said that they will be back with normal operations by December 10 to December 15. But the problem continues at a lot of airports at this point in time as we speak. The crisis, in fact, is the biggest blow that IndiGo has faced in its 20-year operation history as well. Now, the big question also emerges is that when IndiGo faced a crisis, why were other airlines not able to cover up? The reason is same. IndiGo's fleet is far higher and bigger and towers way above the other airlines' flights as well. And this is why they are unable to absorb the huge number of passengers that usually opt for IndiGo flights to their own flights. Now, of course, mass cancellations of flights amid this busy travel season of winter holidays has also led to a public outcry. And this has forced the government to now intervene. The government has rolled back these rules till February only for IndiGo. Remember, despite India being the world's 5th largest aviation market, there are only 2 airlines that have about 90% of the control. IndiGo has a 64% market share in India, whereas Air India has a 27% market share. And this has raised a key question now. Can India continue to afford only 1 or 2 airlines that dominate the skies and put the sector at the risk of operational paralysis? Well, the current crisis has seen that the government had to intervene in this situation and to extend the deadline of implementing new rules for IndiGo. But this situation should not have arisen in the first place itself. The crisis has now exposed the near monopoly of the Indian aviation sector or the too big to fail problem in the aviation industry as well. Nowhere else in the world, compare with UK, US or China, do we actually see that airlines have such large dominance in terms of market shares. When we see US or UK or China airlines, you will see the largest market share is anywhere between 18% to maybe largely 50%. Our own Indian government has actually allowed this to happen, that one airline has a 64% market share. While the government continues to expand aviation infrastructure with large airports across the countries, this crisis underscores the need for greater competition, also robust regulation and measures to ensure safety of passengers as well. Also, a big question now for the government stares at their eyes. Should the government be now creating an environment where more and more companies are invited to participate to set up their own aviation companies in India and probably participate to, of course, increase the amount of competition, reduce the dependence on one airline particularly. Remember, back in the year 2014, 10 years ago, India had 8 fully functional carriers and now we are down to 4, with IndiGo, Air India at the top and SpiceJet and Akasa with minor shareholding at this point in time. The big question again is whether this crisis will only stop with IndiGo taking some remedy measures like hiring some more pilots. They have already indicated over the next 12 months they will be hiring 300 captains and about 600 junior first officers as well. But will this solve the problem? The key other question is that can we have a situation where because of either mass cancellations or due to new rules, we see a system collapse, and nobody was prepared for such kind of a situation, neither the company nor the industry at large as well. So the big question is, what is the need of the hour? Do we need more players to reduce the dependence on one company, or do we need a much more efficient aviation system within the airlines as well? The key question should also be that the DGCA should not just stop here by finding out what were the key reasons and maybe penalize a few companies and the strategy at this point in time, but ensure that something like this never arises again, because this is not accepted at a place when we are looking at India's aviation industry really booming as a sector that competes not only with developing countries but even with developed countries at large. And if we are hoping to see more and more growth, in fact we have a data which actually believes that domestic passengers list of travelers has already gone from last if you look at just about last 10 years, from FY15, we had about 70 million passengers flying domestically. but now we have 166 million flyers as of FY25. So that is growing. We have a massive infra growth, the booming demand that continues to grow as well. Passenger traffic, we are given to understand as per data of IATA that it is set to grow at 6.5% CAGR from 2023 to 2043 estimated as well. So, and it also contributes about 1.5% to the overall GDP, also leads to a lot of job creation. About 8 million jobs are created because of this aviation industry as well. And in fact, when we compare with India to the globe, India holds about 12% of global pending aircraft orders. So we are constantly giving big orders. We are constantly hoping for a bigger industry. But at the core of it, do we have robust regulation in place? Are there standard processes that can avoid such a crisis is the key question. Well, with that, we wrap up this special video right here, but I hope this has answered and probably raised a few critical questions that you must also think about as well. Remains to be seen how soon can passenger woes be really resolved at this point in time, and what comes in next for IndiGo. The shares of IndiGo have already fallen quite a bit, now have tested 5,000 rupee levels also on the stock prices. The brokerage houses are reducing their target prices for IndiGo looking at the current crisis. Will this be a problem that will stay with IndiGo and on its books for a long time to come? Will further quarterly results get hugely impacted by this, because they are constantly now refunding passengers money because of this crisis as well, is something that we will have to closely keep an eye out on too.